Alrighty, this is Josh Room from East West Alien Performance, and today I want to make this a quick YouTube because I did a little blog on it. I don't want to get technical, even though I do, but I'm only putting this out based on my own experiences. I'm not here to put anyone down, but I see so much, because of Ray Peat's work kind of going viral over the past couple years. You see everyone posting online, hey, look at my body temperature, it's 37 Celsius or 98.6 degrees. You see people posting about eating high-carb diets to regulate body temperature, eating to regulate body temperature. And for me, based on our experience and perception of Ray's work and Broda Barnes' work and all these different people, you're missing a huge part of the process. And I can't stress this enough. You can't get a good view of your metabolism without looking at body temperature and pulse. Taking body temperature alone is not going to tell you anything. Honestly, it is not going to tell you anything. Now, in a simplistic sense, or I guess not a simplistic sense, what are we looking at when we look at body temperature and pulse? We're looking at what's called oxidative metabolism. Now, a lot of this information and a lot of the information on the blog is from our course, The Metabolic Blueprint. And remember, if you want to sign up now to save some money, you can sign up at the link below. But the bottom line is we're looking at how our cells are breathing. If they're making carbon dioxide, ATP, water, which is energy. This is the end product of what's called glucose oxidation, which is termed oxidative metabolism. We actually have a whole bonus document on this. When there's optimal respiration or oxidative metabolism and carbon dioxide is actually being produced from glucose oxidation, hemoglobin actually releases oxygen to the cells. So when CO2 is present from eating the right foods, the right frequencies, the right ratios, etc., there's a continuous release of oxygen from hemoglobin, allowing continued oxidative metabolism with cellular respiration or optimal breathing of our cells. This not only continues the whole energy process of respiratory metabolism, but also continues to sustain cellular respiration within our cells, within our tissues, within our organs. So it's a feedback loop. You have oxygen, glucose, and thyroid hormone, which is essential for cellular respiration through the mitochondria. And of course, in our mitochondria, our cells actually convert cholesterol into pregnenolone, which actually help to keep the cells stable and prevent oxidation of unsaturated fats. And we produce energy, CO2, and water, which is energy, which creates that feedback loop to actually feed more oxygen to the beginning part of the cycle. So of course, there's many things that can cause our cells to not breathe properly, like increased cortisol, dioxins, radiation, serotonin, estrogen, lack of glucose, increased reverse T3, PUFAs, etc. We've gone over this in the Metabolic Blueprint as well as many of our blogs and YouTubes. But that's really what you're looking at. And what you're looking at is you're looking at, can my cells breathe properly? Now, of course, you're seeing adrenaline, cortisol, thyroid, all these different levels in a sense. It's much more complex. You can get a lot of information from a little thermometer and taking your pulse, which is pretty cheap. But let me just tell you this. First of all, from our experience, pulse is one of the last things to come up. With a lot of people, it's, they'll see changes in their pulses. They'll see changes in their temperatures, but the pulse takes a little bit more time to come up. Now, this is one reason, of course, there's many, why we feel you always have to take body temperature and pulse. If you take body temperature alone, most people say, well, my body temperature is 98.6. Yay, I hit 98.6. This is the problem. Let's say you're not taking your pulse. Now, let me just preface it with this. What we've seen is, in the acute phase of working with people, whatever that may be, people typically show up sometimes with a high pulse here and there. Temperature can do many things. The more chronic person, it's per the person, I don't know what chronic means, but more chronic, what we typically see is, their body's not able to kind of regulate itself. They'll actually show with severely low I keep messing them up. Very low pulses, and they'll show up with a high pulse here and there. And then the more chronic, I'm sorry, I rewinded a little bit. I messed up here. The more acute person will show up, with the more, kind of low pulses, and they'll show up with a high pulse here and there during the day. The more chronic person is actually going to show up with a lot of low pulses. The more systemically chronic, really, really chronic person is going to show up with a lot of high pulses, especially in the morning upon awakening. What is high? Anything over 85 beats per minute. According to Ray Peat, healthy individuals should have a resting heart rate of 80 to 85 beats per minute. If I can get clients to the 70s and the 80s, I'm pretty happy. So this is the issue. If you take body temperature without pulse, let's say you wake up and you're in bed, and you take your body temperature and it's 98.6. What if your pulse is 100? You didn't take your pulse. That's showing you that adrenaline is actually driving your pulse. So if you didn't take your pulse, you don't know that adrenaline is actually driving your temperature and you're in a hyperadrenaline state. Now you can't take the necessary steps to fine-tune your nutrition. At the same time, if you go eat breakfast, your first meal, now that sugars and nutrients and macronutrients are coming in, it's actually going to downregulate adrenaline and cortisol. Your pulse should drop, but what's going to happen is your temperature is going to drop because now adrenaline's downregulated and it's not driving your pulse. So now your pulse is going to, your temperature is going to drop. So now you're going to eat your breakfast and now your temperature is going to be 97.6 and you're going to go, wow, I need to change my breakfast. My breakfast didn't work for me. But in all reality, it did work for you because it pulled you out of this hyperadrenaline state. So you can't really get a clear picture of what's going on without taking your pulse. It's so important to take your pulse. I can't state this enough. And same thing during the day. You could get the same reading. So you really need to take your pulse. I can't stress this enough to get a clear picture into what you're doing, what's working, and what you need to fine-tune. You never take pulse alone, and you never take temperature alone. You always take them together to get a true reading of oxidative metabolism, to get a true reading if you're hyperadrenal or hypercortisol. That's really the only way to help yourself so you can fine-tune your foods to meet your metabolic needs. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. Hopefully you enjoyed the blog. My really main point of doing this is to let you know you can't get a glimpse into your physiology without taking body temperature and pulse. Taking body temperature alone, you are doing your body a disservice. Peace.